Let's get more on this. Different views, I'm sure. I'm joined from Washington by former strategist to Bill Clinton, Simon Rosenberg, and from New York by Republican strategist Evan Siegfried. Very good to talk to you, gentlemen. Mr. Siegfried, if I could start with you, and even as a Republican, you've got to say, this smacks of hypocrisy.
It does. It absolutely does. And it should be investigated, to be honest with you. On the face of it right now, what we know is it was not as serious as what Hillary Clinton did. However, we don't know the breadth and scope of what actually happened. And it was very, very troubling to me because Jared Kushner, her husband, was busted for using not only private emails at the very beginning of the administration, but for using Signal, an encrypted messaging app which deletes all the messages after a set period of time that you send in order to conduct government business. So there is a question here of why is the White House feeling that it's do as I say, not as I do when it comes to communications and working on behalf of the government.
OK, and let's get the feeling from Simon Rosenberg. I mean, after what Hillary Clinton went through in 2016 with cries of lock her up and crooked Hillary echoing around all those Republican rallies, you obviously feel this is hypocritical.
Yeah, so 2 points. One is, first of all, we don't know anything. And anybody who says that there wasn't classified materials or even how many emails there were, until all of the equipment and the servers and access is turned over to the FBI and to investigators, we're never going to know the extent of what happened. So it's amazing to me that you're hearing people sort of say, well, it's not as big a deal as Hillary Clinton. We have no way of knowing, right? And certainly, even though she may have sent fewer emails, there could have been far many more classified emails that were sent, for example. So we'll see. The second thing is I just think it fits into a far bigger story, things that you've been talking about today with Khashoggi and the Russians taking over of Interpol, of this sort of general disregard of the rule of law and international conventions, democratic norms, laws themselves, right, here in the United States by the Trump administration, by the Trump family. This is a much bigger issue than just this one narrow thing that I think Democrats in the country will be wrestling with every day starting in January.
OK, and I want to see if Evan Siegfried, as a Republican, is wrestling with that in a moment or two. But we're going to get on to those bigger issues in a moment, as I say. But Mr. Siegfried, just that defence, if it is one, coming out from Ivanka's people, as they call them, saying that it was before she was briefed, she wasn't fully aware of the requirements. I mean, we saw her at those rallies.
Okay, so she's not guilty, but just stupid. And keep in mind that the defense that has come out from Ivanka's people didn't come from the White House. The White House referred this to her criminal defense attorney, who happens to also represent her husband in the Mueller probe. So I agree with Simon 100%. We have to investigate and see what actually happened. And while, as a Republican, I am actually standing up for the rule of law, and it's disappointing to see other Republicans not do so and so easily dismiss this. If this were a Clinton or anybody with a D next to their name, we would be going crazy and literally standing outside the White House with torches, demanding that they turn everything over so we can see if the rule of law was followed.
Well, just to stay with you then, and do you also agree with that point from Simon Rosenberg as we broaden it out, that it's part of a more general disregard for the rules and indeed the law within the Trump administration?
Absolutely. This administration is clearly not following the rules and the rule of law when it comes to several different matters. Matthew Whitaker, the acting attorney general, has still not released his financial disclosure form. He is unconstitutionally appointed, as several conservative legal scholars have noted. The president feels that it's okay to not release his tax returns. That's not rule of law, but that's certainly tradition of all of previous presidents in the modern era. And we have many different things that are going on in this administration which could be ruled as corruption. The Secretary of the Interior is currently under investigation by the Inspector General for very shady dealings and engagements. And it's going to be very, very interesting to watch the House Government Oversight Committee when Democrats take over on January 3rd.
Which anticipates my next question to Simon Rosenberg. As mentioned there, the Democrats now have control of the House. How hard do you think they're going to start going after the Trumps?
I don't think we're going to go after the Trumps. I think that, if you look at how we ran this election, which was very successful for us, it was the best electoral performance by an American political party in 32 years. is that we said that we're going to work on healthcare and jobs, and those are going to be the major things. I think that Democrats have to be very careful to make sure that whatever we do in our normal oversight role that's required by the Constitution, that we do it in the spirit of trying to elicit more information as opposed to making it look like it's some kind of political vendetta or that we're using it for political means. And certainly we have to be disciplined and careful about making sure that our priorities are really about making the lives of everyday people better in the United States and not, going after Republicans in Congress. Having said that, the amount of law breaking, rule breaking, norm breaking that we've seen by the administration is unprecedented in the history of the United States. And we have an awful lot of work to do to make sure that the president is following the law and he and his family are not above the law. And I think this will be the Ivanka issue, I think, will be very small compared to many of the other bigger, far more grave and serious problems that have been brought up by Trump's presidency.
But as you touch on there, it's the law, yes, but and staying with you, Mr. Rosenberg.
Yeah.
But of course, politics comes into it as well. Do you feel there's a potential trap for the Democrats if they were tempted to go in hard on the Trumps? The Trump base has already shown us, haven't they, that they don't really care too much about what the president has been doing in terms of his dissembling and perhaps outright lying in some cases.
No, I think I answered the question, man. I think we have to, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we were true to what we said we were going to do in the election, which was to make the struggle of everyday people our main priority for governing. I think that we also, though, have an obligation to clean up corruption in Washington, and certainly they've given us a lot to work with. I think that there will be an effort to go to understand better what the president's done and, what appears to the tax fraud that he clearly committed in New York prior to becoming president, the public corruption that we're seeing through his hotel and other means, questions of his relationship with Vladimir Putin and the Saudi government. I mean, there's a whole series of things that are completely fair game and things that would be done under any normal administration that we have that will, I'm sure, will get covered. But it's critical for us, as I said, to make sure we're looking like we're doing this to bring out information as opposed to persecute people. I think we're agile enough. I think we're capable enough to do that. And I think it's important we keep that spirit as we move forward.
Just want to get the last thought of Mr. Siegfried then. That's another irony arising from that, isn't there? That if the Democrats really are going to try and not target the Trumps, but root out corruption, of course, taking us back to the election again, that was the other big campaign slogan, wasn't it? Drain the swamp.
Well, the swamp has only gotten swampier since Donald Trump took office. But you won't hear him admit that. To be honest with you, Simon is right. Democrats have to be able to show the voters that place their trust in them that they are trying to accomplish things for them. And they can't look like they have some sort of personal vendetta against the president, because that will only help enrage the Trump base and help the president going into 2020. They need to start small if they're going to do any oversight. And they have to start looking at real scandals and then see where the evidence takes them, and provide the key oversight that has been lacking over the past 2 years. I think that they're going to have to look into the president's relationship with Saudi Arabia, because today's stunning statement that they will not punish Saudi Arabia for the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi is in a continuation of the president's foreign policy, which is best summed up in 3 words: hugs for thugs. Since Donald Trump has taken office, he has not stood up for American values and morals across the world and shown this country to be the beacon of hope and freedom that many oppressed people look up to and aspire to ultimately live in one day. It is a disgusting betrayal of the notions and ideals of this nation. And Donald Trump should be held to account by the Congress and the people ultimately for his failure and dereliction of duty.
OK, stay with me, gentlemen, because I do understand that the president is just addressing the issue right now. We're going to, as we say in the news parlance, turn round what the president has been saying. We've been recording it, that means, and then we'll play it out in a moment or two. But while you're with us, just let's bring it back to Ivanka and, the president's daughter. A lot of people saying, what precisely were and are her qualifications for such a senior job?
Is this for me? Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So listen, she shouldn't be in the government. Jared Kushner shouldn't be in the government. It's ridiculous that they're still there. I mean, Kushner himself, this has been overlooked in all the many scandals, is that Kushner himself committed dozens of felonies in his improper reporting of his financial history to the government when he came into the government last year. They weren't ready. They didn't understand what they were getting into, and they don't really have any business being there. Having said that, Ivanka Trump is more powerful in this administration than Hillary Clinton was in the Obama administration. And so therefore, if we now have found out that she exposed inner workings of the United States government to easy access by hostile foreign powers, which is really at the end of the day the issue around the emails, and given how central it was to the campaign, this is a major scandal, right? And the notion that we will never know whether, as I heard somebody say on television earlier today, even her physical location, one of the things they're saying is, well, it was about logistics. The physical location of principles of our government is classified, right? These are classified things. These are not public things that are known. I mean, the Secret Service keeps these things private when they're traveling, right? Oftentimes. And so the idea that this was not a grave security breach is ridiculous. And it's something that we have to get an understanding on.
All right, just before we go to the president, Mr. Siegfried, your just thoughts on the president's family having such senior jobs?
Well, the president only trusts his family, to be honest with you. He doesn't trust anybody else. We haven't seen any rage tweets about Jared or Ivanka. They're always about the other people. And he has this notion that there's some secret wing of the government seeking to undermine him. But to get to what Simon was saying, it's also important to note that even if Ivanka Trump didn't put anything in writing that was classified, but she shared an opinion on a bill, or say another world leader or somebody who is an elected official in the United States, that could be vulnerable to hacking and provide not only, or at the very least, an embarrassing blow to the president and the White House, but it could actually be used by foreign intelligence agencies, because I have to assume whichever email domain they're using was probably bought on a GoDaddy.com, and that has nowhere near the level of security and encryption that a government email for somebody who works for the president of the United States has.
OK, gentlemen, thank you both very much indeed for your thoughts and analysis. Evan Siegfried and Simon Roseberg, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's find out how embarrassed the president is about all this. I suspect not very, or indeed not at all. This is what the president has had to say at the White House in the last few minutes.